Hello, everybody. So lately, I came across a beautiful castle, and it was a castle at Arcadia University, which is just a local university located in Glenside, Pennsylvania. And I wondered, who was this individual who created this really beautiful looking castle that is at this university? And when I looked up the person who created it, I was very shocked to see that he not only was the architect behind this castle, but also behind many other luxurious buildings throughout the time of the Gilded Age and also a little after. Now, if we want to have a grasp of the buildings that he created and why they were created, let's actually first talk about the Gilded Age, where he was very prominent and he was hired by many of his wealthy, often what are known as robber baron clientele, which are usually wealthy individuals who, of course, they make their money through working hard, setting up their own businesses, whatever. But also, they did a lot of questionable things, whether it's unfettered consumption of natural resources, also their ability to bribe government officials, and also utilize wage slavery, among other things. You know, stuff that I'm sure very well goes on today still, but I'm not trying to be too political. But hey, this was the term given to people who did that type of stuff in the 19th century. And this individual who I'm going to talk about today was the man who would create a lot of these absolutely amazing, luxurious type mansions for a lot of these guys, which I myself will go into and have even visited a few of them lately, which I'll also go into this video as well. But I want to go into exactly what the Gilded Age was first before I go into this guy and why he was trusted himself to carry on the architecture responsibilities to create these amazing homes, manors, mansions, whatever you'd like to call them. The Gilded Age was considered to be a time period from the late 1870s all the way to the late 1890s. It was considered to be a revolutionary time period of rapid economic expansion. Now, during this time period, industries such as steel, petroleum, and transportation were booming like absolutely crazy. And as a result, you had many individuals who ran these industries get their wallets crazy fat. I mean, they were rich, super loaded, as rich as possible. And this was a time period where there were not many laws that would stop these people from monopolizing. And you could only imagine that when people become so wealthy, think of John D. Rockefeller, the man who monopolized Standard Oil, or the Vanderbilt family, a family that revolutionized the railroad industry. J.P. Morgan, him too, also another railroad plus high-level merchant. And these guys were just making crazy money, and there was a lack of laws that would encourage fair competition. So you had these guys just making crazy money, and as a result, they really wanted to use that money to, create something that would suit their taste buds. You know what I mean? Have gigantic mansions that would include opulent, beautiful marble sculptures and beautiful frescoes and paintings and all that. Like the stuff you see in Europe. But in America, many of these guys, they had the money and they wanted these designs here as well. So they wanted an architect who was very skilled and who would bring upon their greatest desires. And who better than the architect of the Gilded Age himself, a man very prominent during this time, a man by the name of Horace Trumbauer. And I will be going into exactly what his impact was And all the buildings, not all the buildings, but a lot of his more well-known buildings, plus many of the buildings that he made for many of his wealthy robber baron clients that are still around today. And honestly, I mean, I've checked some of them out myself and they're very beautiful. So I'm just trying to go over the contributions that he has made towards society that still lasts to this day. Horace Trumbauer was born on December 28, 1868 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He was born to father Josiah Byler Trumbauer and mother Mary Malvina Trumbauer. While I couldn't find much about his childhood, what I do know is that it did not take long until the start of his greatness emerged. You see, in 1881, when Trumbauer was still young, he moved to Jenkintown, PA, where he attended Jenkintown schools and attended a 6-year apprenticeship with architecture firm G.W. and W.D. Hewitt. Getting this exposure at such a young age was such a great experience for a young Trumbauer. You see, the firm that he was working for, they were no laughingstock. They were big players themselves. The firm, G.W. and W.D. Hewitt, was run by two brothers, one by the name of George Watson Hewitt, who was the older one, and he was around from 1841 to 1916, and the other brother, the younger one, whose name was William Dempster Hewitt, who was around from 1847 to 1924. And they specialized in churches, hotels, and palatial residences, as well as mansions. Some examples of what they made include the Dreum Muir Castle in Chestnut Hill, PA, as well as the Bolt Castle in New York. With Horace being a part of such a well-known institution at a young age, that really helped him with his growth, as at the age of 21, he already started his own architecture firm. I mean, wow. I mean, at 21, I was still in college wondering what the heck I was going to do with my life. This man was already out here making business moves. So, this guy was already had his purpose from when he was really, really young. He started out designing homes for the middle class, planned communities in places such as Overbrook Farms and Wayne Estate Development. In 1893, however, he finally had his first big commission, and that was with Grey Towers Castle, which was the castle that I mentioned earlier, which I myself checked out a couple weeks ago, and it was actually, as I already stated, what led me to looking up this guy and making this video. Obviously, it is now a part of Arcadia University in Glenside, Pennsylvania. However, it was actually originally designed for sugar magnate William Welsh Harrison, which included an exterior based on the Alnwick Castle in Northumberland, England, with French interiors that range in style. This castle helped launch his career at the young age of 23. Now, what was also very great for Trumbauer was the fact that the sugar magnate William Welsh Harrison introduced Trumbauer to streetcar and real estate developer Peter A. B. Widener, where he was then able to develop a 110-room Georgia Revival Palace known as Linwood Hall. And so that is just an insane, ridiculous building. I mean, 110 rooms. And it was built between 1897 and 1899, and it is today the second largest surviving Gilded Age mansion in the United States, which is located in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania. I actually saw this mansion a few days ago, and right now they're in the process of reconstructing it. And for the longest time, it was actually abandoned, and it is still abandoned. However, like I said, they're redoing a lot of it right now, and hopefully in a few years it will be completed and people will be able to view it once again. I've seen some videos of some people being able to view the palace, Linwood Hall, when it was all decrepit, and it is definitely very interesting. However, they had to get specialized permission in order to view it. I was only able to see it from the outside. So, I'm just hoping that eventually it will be done again and I will be able to check it out, as well as other people who go by that region, because, yes, the building is absolutely massive and beautiful. Throughout the years, his firm has been responsible for many prominent American buildings. He has helped many renowned men who have become very wealthy during that era to help satisfy their hunger so that they can feel content with beautiful buildings that have been erected by Trumbauer. Another excellent example of this is William Elkins, who was a renowned businessman and who was also integral to the Philadelphia Railroad Company and the Philadelphia Rapid Transit Company, which was a forerunner for what is known as SEPTA today. For William Elkins, Horace Trumbauer designed for him the Elkins Estate, which included 7 buildings, with the most notable being the Elstow Manor, which was built in 1898 and has 45 rooms built in the style of Italian High Renaissance. I recently saw the Elstow Manor, and I'll tell you that it is very European-like beauty when it comes to how it is built. And it's very cool seeing a building like that in America, especially due to the fact that just a few years ago, just like Linwood Hall, it was also abandoned. And I saw a video on YouTube with the place pretty much abandoned. And now, a couple years later, I go and check it out. And I was checking out the place, and it's crazy. I mean, everything is now built up, and now it's serving as a full-blown wedding venue and a hotel, when just a couple years earlier it was deserted. Now, the nearby properties, they'll remind you of say, for instance, you are in Rothenburg and you see a lot of those Tudor-like homes. A lot of the homes by the Elstow Manor are Tudor home-like with their design, which is also very cool. And I checked all of that out. Some of them, it looked like they had some residents living there, but they were also part of those estates where they also look like they haven't been touched in years. And it was very interesting seeing all of them. And it's amazing what they've been able to turn it into in the past couple of years after it being pretty much deserted years prior. For the Wideners, the Elkins, and his circle, which included many other prominent wealthy members, he designed mansions for them in numerous states, making sure that their fat appetites were fulfilled. In 1903, Trumbauer married Sarah Thompson Williams and became a stepfather to her daughter Agnes Helena Smith from her previous marriage to iron dealer C. Comley Smith. In 1906, Trumbauer hired a member of the black community who was the first black graduate of the University of Pennsylvania's architecture department and promoted him to chief designer in 1909. He had a very prominent part of the firm as he contributed to many of Trumbauer's designs, around 400 of them for which he was largely attributed to. Some of these buildings that he helped Trumbauer with included the Widener Memorial Library at Harvard, Philadelphia Central Library, Philadelphia Museum of Art, and he was also the primary designer of the West Campus of Duke University. While he contributed greatly to many of these buildings that were built at Trumbauer's firm, the chapel at Duke University is the one building where he was given credit as the main designer for, however. While he obviously didn't get the credit that he deserved, just my thoughts, as he may have even done more work than Trumbauer and many other people in regards to many of the properties that were built, his greatness was definitely still on great display as being the chief architect for Trumbauer, helping him with many of his great inventions. The Philadelphia Art Museum personally is one of my favorite, as it is always cool going around to Philadelphia, and while on my way to the city, I always turn and see the large, gigantic Philly Art Museum with its huge pillars as I'm driving towards there. And it's always amazing to see that. Another baron Trumbauer was commissioned to build was for Herbert Nathan Strauss, who was the youngest son of Macy's founder Isidore Strauss. The design was meant to resemble a Ancien Regime French-style mansion. I don't know if I said that right, to be honest, which is known to represent power, wealth, and hierarchy with its heavy ornamentation and with gilded details, elaborate ceiling frescoes, as well as being often larger and more grand. Think of buildings like the Palace of Versailles, for instance, or the Place de la Concorde. The building was built in limestone with intricate carvings and is a very large residential home today in Manhattan. Interestingly, the home was not fully finished as Strauss and his heir were not able to deal with the high property cost. In 1944, it was donated to the Archdiocese of New York for a hospital. It was then owned by the Birch Nathan School and then purchased by billionaire Leslie Wexner, who was the man who founded Bath and Body Works in 1989, for a whopping $13.2 million. And he also got some work done on the house and had a lot of it redone as well to make it look nicer in his image. In 1995, a certain controversial figure then moved into the home. Yes, it was this guy, and until 2019, when it was raided for the long overdue investigation. In 2021, the house was then sold again for $51 million, with some of the proceeds helping the victims of the previous owner and his diabolical acts. The building I mentioned were only some of the many that he has made. As stated earlier, I actually recently visited some of these buildings, like the Elkins Estate, the Grey Towers Castle, as well as the Linwood Hall Mansion. And they were very, very beautiful, and it just shows the greatness of Trumbauer, as well as the vast wealth that occurred during the Gilded Age. Despite Trumbauer's success, however, he still felt like he had a sense of inferiority, unfortunately, and this was due to his lack of formal education. For most of us, we would say to ourselves, he felt inferior? We're talking about a guy who started his own firm at 21 years of age. At the age of 23, already completed a big project involving a huge castle, and then immediately after created a huge mansion. And this guy still sounds inferior? I mean, to most of us, this would sound crazy, especially today. I mean, most of us today graduate college and we can't even find a job to get. But my guess is that due to the fact that during his time, college was often seen as a place where really the only top, I would say 1% of people would actually be able to get into. And it was seen really only as a venue for the upper class, for which he was around often, of course, as he was a top architect for the ultra-rich. And maybe that could have had an effect on why he thought the way he did. If anyone watches this video, I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on this may be and why he may have felt inferior, because he for sure was not an inferior man, that's for certain. He started to, unfortunately, drink heavily, and he died of cirrhosis in 1938 at the age of 69 years old. He is now buried in West Laurel Hill Cemetery in Ballykinwood, Pennsylvania. When I think of Trumbauer, I think of a man who took advantage of the perfect opportunity and had the perfect skill set for someone to have at the time that he was living. You see, the Gilded Age was a time where people were getting rich very fast, creating monopolies in numerous industries. And many of these guys, they wanted to live this high-level aristocracy, European-type life that you would see many of the high aristocrats or kings and queens live with their magnificent castles and palaces and all that. And Trumbauer, realizing that, created these lucrative, amazing mansions which still stand today. And unfortunately, some have become abandoned. There was one near me called Whitemarsh Hall, which was taken down, and very little remnants of it last today. However, as stated earlier, I myself saw Linwood Hall, and I was able to see the outside of it, and it was beautiful. However, hopefully I'll be able to see the inside of it once it is renovated. And they also renovated, of course, the other mansion which is nearby called Elstow Manor at the Elstow Estate, where they're also working on many of the nearby properties there as well that he created. Those are just a few of the amazing properties that he has created throughout his life, creating many other beautiful mansions in other states, and just other houses, churches, and designs in general. His legacy will continue to live on as his building still remains strong today, and it is a privilege that a man like that was able to provide so much beauty and so many great things for a man like myself living in Pennsylvania, especially to see whenever I may want to see something interesting. Many of his buildings would be ones to check out, no doubt about it. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video and want to see more future long-form videos like this, feel free to subscribe where you'll get notified when a new video comes out. Also, I like to post a lot of shorts on this channel where I'll post lots of beautiful architecture or just interesting things that I find in general. It's not always architecture based. Also, feel free to follow my other account, Quadogamous Food Reviews, where I try different food places out and give my honest food review rating on how they taste. Thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see many of these same viewers on here again. Have a great rest of the day, and goodbye.